There's a strange moment that happens after the emptiness settles. Not when someone leaves, not during the first days, not while everything still feels loud and unfinished. It happens later, quietly, almost without you noticing. At first, absence feels unnatural. Your mind keeps expecting things automatically. A message, a reaction, a return, even when you know none of it is coming. Your body still follows old patterns for a while. Your thoughts still move in their direction before you can stop them. Not because you decide to, because repetition stays longer than reality sometimes. And in the beginning, every silence feels personal. Every empty moment feels connected to them. You notice their absence in everything, in certain hours of the day, in familiar places, in small routines your mind still hasn't released. Even ordinary moments feel altered by the fact that they're no longer inside them, but slowly, something begins to shift. Not dramatically. There's no sudden breakthrough. No clear moment where you say, I'm okay now. It happens in smaller ways than that. You go a little longer without checking your phone. A thought about them passes through your mind without staying there all evening. You notice something beautiful for a second, and realize they weren't the first thing you wanted to tell anymore. And somehow, those moments feel stranger than pain did, because pain still kept them close. Pain still made everything feel connected to them. But this is different. This feels like distance becoming real. Not emotionally dramatic, just real. You begin adjusting to their absence in ways you don't fully recognize at first. Your evenings change shape. The emotional urgency fades a little. Silence stops feeling like something is about to happen. And that shift can feel unexpectedly empty, because for so long, your inner world was organized around waiting. Waiting for contact, waiting for clarity, waiting for movement. Even disappointment created structure. Now there's less of that. And without realizing it, you begin living inside a quieter emotional space. Not peaceful, not healed, just quieter. The absence is still there. But your nervous system no longer reacts to it every second. That doesn't mean you stopped caring. It doesn't mean they stopped mattering. It only means your mind cannot stay in a permanent state of anticipation forever. At some point, it begins adapting. And adaptation feels strange when your emotions spent so long resisting reality. You start noticing moments where life continues without asking your permission. Morning arrives, the day moves forward. People speak to you about ordinary things, and for a few seconds, you participate in those moments naturally. Then later, you notice it. You notice there was a stretch of time where the absence wasn't the center of everything, and sometimes that realization creates guilt. Not because you want the pain back, but because part of you became so used to carrying them constantly that even temporary quiet feels unfamiliar. Still, the quiet keeps growing, slowly. Without announcements. The routines change first, then reactions, then expectations. You stop checking certain things automatically. You stop replaying the same conversations with the same intensity. Their name still exists inside you, but it no longer interrupts every thought. And this is where absence changes form. It stops feeling like a wound that is actively opening every day. Instead, it becomes part of the emotional landscape. Something that exists in the background. Something your mind quietly moves around now instead of crashing directly into. There are still moments where it returns sharply. A memory, a place, a sentence that sounds like them. And for a second, everything feels close again. But even those moments pass differently than before. They don't consume the entire day. They don't completely pull you under. They arrive, they stay briefly, then they leave again. And maybe that's one of the strangest parts of all this, the realization that absence can become familiar, not comfortable, not easy, just familiar enough that your body stops treating it like an emergency. And once that happens, life begins moving in quieter ways, not happier, not lighter, just less centered around what's missing. You begin noticing the world again in fragments, the sound of rain, a slow evening, a conversation that holds your attention for a little longer than before, not because the absence disappeared, but because your mind is slowly learning how to exist beside it. There are moments where you almost forget for a second, Not them, not what happened, just the constant emotional weight of it. And those moments can feel disorienting, because part of you expected the absence to stay sharp forever, expected the silence to always feel unbearable, but instead, it changes texture. It becomes quieter, more woven into everyday life. You stop measuring every moment against what used to be there. You stop noticing every silence immediately. Some evenings pass normally now. Not happily, not sadly, just normally. And maybe that's what feels the strangest. The realization that your life slowly kept forming itself around the absence without asking you first. New rhythms appear quietly. New habits form in places where old ones used to live. Not intentionally, not forcefully, just naturally over time. And still, certain moments remain untouched. A familiar song, a certain hour at night, the instinct to tell them something before remembering you no longer do that. Those moments still exist, but they no longer define the entire day around them. They pass through you differently now. Less like a collapse, more like an echo. And echoes don't stay at full volume forever. They fade slowly into the background of everything else, not because they meant less, but because your mind cannot survive forever inside one emotional moment, so it adapts. Quietly, gradually, without asking whether you're ready. And maybe that's what getting used to absence really is. Not forgetting, not replacing, not moving on in some dramatic, visible way. Just slowly learning how to continue existing beside something that once changed everything inside you. Until one day the absence no longer feels new, it just feels familiar. And you realize you've been carrying it differently for a while already.